and welcome to our podcast. We're going to be talking about just a couple of Shakespeare sonnets. So, I'm Rwan.
And I'm Asfa.
And I'm Aina.
And I'm Hala.
All right, so have you guys been reading up on the sonnets lately?
Yes. They're very interesting, honestly.
All of them are very, very interesting.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like they're kind of timeless, even though it's hard to understand.
Yeah, sometimes with the words and the Shakespearean language, but they're still, as you said, timeless.
Yeah, I get how you feel. What do you guys think of Sonnet 116? Let me not to the marriage of true minds, I think it was called.
I really like that it talks about true love, even though nowadays it's not as true as before. Although we still try to have this true, timeless love that doesn't fade.
What do you mean by true love? What is true love to you?
The love that doesn't fade and feels the same exact way since you meet the person that you think is the love of your life. You both have the same feelings and it doesn't change towards time.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
To me, true love in this sonnet is about how the love doesn't change over time or in difficult situations. It also, Shakespeare also says that real love is constant and it doesn't get weaker or fade when things get hard, or it doesn't appear when circumstances change.
I get what you mean.
In my opinion, if you just read it without diving deep into it, you might think he is describing an everlasting love, but I think his most cliche and most unrealistic sonnet, because the way he says it is not directly, it's like he's trying to convince himself that love is everlasting. And he asks us to paraphrase the words, because he says in line 3 and 4, he says that love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds or bends with the remover to remove. But then instead of saying it in a direct way, he is trying to say that love is everlasting, but in a way what love is not. He's saying it in a negative way instead of a direct way, if you know what I mean.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I get what you mean. If you think about it, in today's age, it's love doesn't really feel as true, quote unquote, as it does. It does feel almost unrealistic.
Yeah, it's two people are still doubting each other. They don't know, is the person feeling the same feelings as me or not? Even though maybe they both do love each other, but each one of them is still doubting the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. The doubt, the feeling of doubt.
Or jealousy. If, let's say, one person talks to someone of the opposite gender, it's well, they're still okay, but why are you talking to that person? There's no oh, I know they love me.
I should be the only person you talk to.
Or even just trusting them, I feel like.
Yeah, trust is not as well these days.
Yeah, because I mean...
I think love is about trust. Trust is important in love. Because if you don't trust, why would you love them in the first place? I think.
I thought of it the other way. If you love, then you trust.
Okay.
I feel it goes both ways. If you trust, you can love, and the opposite way. I think both of you guys do make a point.
Yeah. Trust comes naturally if you're in love with someone.
Okay, that's I also really like the last line though, honestly. I get it could have a negative connotation, like you said, but I like the fact that he says oh, I never writ nor no man ever loved.
Even though it's negative, he says it in a beautiful way.
Yeah. It's well, even throughout all of that, love is still real. Even in today's age, even if love isn't as I guess strong as it used to be, or as real as it used to feel, it's still there. Because if he's never written, then no one's ever loved.
Yeah, because every single person wants someone to love them. There is no way that somebody doesn't want to be loved.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's I guess the first one.
How did you all think this sonnet relates to 21st century?
I think even though the reputation of love now is kind of broken, but these days I think all of us, despite these difficulties, we still try to find true love, and we do believe in it.
Yeah, because even these days, in a time where relationships can feel superficial, the sonnet reminds us that real love is steady no matter what happens, no matter what circumstances.
I also think it relates to the 21st century because a lot of people nowadays have unrealistic ideas of love. And then it's in this poem, so it's kind of unrealistic. So it correlates how people nowadays and last time also have the same perception of love, which is unrealistic because of movies and TV shows rom-coms, which portrays that love is everlasting and just smooth, but it's not. That's not the reality.
Yeah, I feel like it also goes both ways. They also have like lots of movies and stuff like that that talk about cheating, and then everybody starts to feel that, is this love actually true? Yeah. And it makes doubts, as we like talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, I love the point about movies and TV shows giving like an unrealistic expectation. Because Shakespeare in some way does have that kind of unrealistic expectation of love.
Yeah.
It's like almost fantasy like.
But I think this sonnet also says that even the love isn't perfect, in the flow of love. How do I say this? We trust each other. We build trust, and then among all those waves that hitting the love,
they're still passionate about it. Yeah, got it.
All right, I guess that's the first one. I also been looking at Sonnet 29, which, it's kind of intense.
Yeah, Sonnet 21 is kind of deep.
Yeah, it's about like insecurity, jealousy. Yeah, what was it called? When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of it?
I think the speaker of the persona, the persona in the sonnet, feels isolated, unlucky, and envious of others who seem to have more success or happiness. What do you guys think?
I think that like what you said, and I also think like his self-loathing, even though he loathes himself or like compares himself to other people, to make himself feel more valuable, he needs to compare himself to other people. Like, oh, he's richer than me, he's more good-looking than me. At the end of the day, love or like true love or love from your friends, doesn't matter if it's platonic or like romantic, if you're surrounded by people who love you, all of those thoughts can go away slowly.
Yeah, because like towards the end, he's like, even he thinks about like the people in his life, and he's like, oh well, what was it he said?
Happily I think on thee, and then my state. Was it that one?
Yeah, and then he's like, I'd scorn to change my fate with kings.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, if I have people who love me, then it's okay. I'm all right where I am.
Yeah, it like even though he feels the feels that he's feeling with love, it feels less.
Yeah, like it
less
can make
important.
a tough day,
Yeah, I get it.
It can make the moods shift from despair to content.
And like honestly, I like the part where he like talks about wanting like friends and like prospects, because like I guess like in modern day, things like connection with other people is still just as important, but in some ways it feels almost harder than it was before, because you have things like social media that's like isolating us from each other, and there's like unrealistic expectations that are portrayed.
Yeah, for example, people post stuff and then it ends up to be something else. Like you could think a person is actually having a happy life and you would feel envious towards them, but then you realize maybe you have a better life than them.
Yeah, and like honestly, I think even like when we post on social media, we put a sort of unrealistic image because we only post our best
the
photos.
positive side of us.
We don't post things like depressing or something. We only post the good things in our
Even though
social
when some
media.
people do post about themselves when they're negative, it's always not as true. It's not realistic.
And it's always surface level, not diving deep into it.
Sometimes it feels performative in some way. Which, I mean, in some ways it's also like followers. Those friends can be followers if you think about it. Like people have this kind of like status for their followers to keep these like friends. I mean, back then, perhaps these quote-unquote kings that he's referring to had proper friends, but in some ways their followers were their subjects, or like people, or like they were ruling over a group of people they had no connection with. And I feel like it kind of reflects modern day like social media.
Does
that make sense?
Like Rwan said, people, especially in social media, we feel like they need to compare ourselves to people. We also had the envy or dissatisfaction and the pressure to compete with others, I think.
Comparison, I think it is kind of the exact topic of this. Comparison like kills somebody.
But at the end of the day, love and friendship can
lift you up.
Lift you up and reassure you.
You're having a tough day, a bad mood, then somebody comes and makes you laugh. So at some point you do need someone to help
that makes
you.
life whole much better.
What do you think, Aina? What do you think of the sonnet?
I think like How do I say this?
How does it relates to modern days?
Modern days, it's the same. Like how even though there wasn't like social media last time, comparing still exists. If you see someone walk past the street, and then if they're like prettier than you or like more good looking, you'll end up like, oh, why am I not as good looking as them? And then you'll try to make yourself look better, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work out because you'll never be satisfied with how you look unless you're surrounded by it. Isn't you have to do like internal work, but at the same time you need support from other people also.
Yeah, when you try to be like somebody else, it doesn't fit because everybody is their own person. You can't try to be somebody else because it's not gonna work.
Yeah, you'll end up thinking, oh, I'm trying to be like her or like him, but why am I still not as perfect? Because in their mind, they're perfect, but they're perfect in their own ways. No one is perfect, but like...
Yeah, and maybe that other person sees the other person perfect, and then both ways they compare each other.
And like at the end of the day, kind of like how he goes is like if you're surrounded by people who care for you, whether it's like friends, family, loved ones, whoever they are, it's like, well, then maybe my fate isn't so bad. Maybe the way I am isn't so bad, because then if I was in a different, I guess, status or a different place in life, I would have never met these people. And I guess that's also really important.
Like to be grateful.
Yeah, to feel like you're perfect no matter what when you're with people who love you.
What do you guys think of Sonnet 30? When to the sessions of sweet silent thought?
Ooh, I thought it was intense.
Yeah, this sonnet is intense because it talks about past losses and regrets.
I mean, like, I feel like he's really
It talks
sorrowful.
about the past regrets, whether it's about past relationships, opportunities, the person that might have felt. I think, yeah, it's about that.
And I think it deals with memories a lot. Because memory is a source of pain. Like, for example, even if you forgive them, the memory of them hurting you is still in your mind. So like death, even though you've moved on from grief, but the thought of them like not being there anymore is also a reminder of how painful it is. So memory plays a big role in it also.
I had like a really interesting like opinion about it, where it's like he says in the beginning like he refused to let himself then I can drown and I unused to flow, like he's not used to crying. And I thought about toxic masculinity a little bit, because he's like, oh, I've never been able to cry about this before, but now I am because the grief is so strong. And I was like, well, in modern day, that kind of like there's still that bit of like, well, I'm not allowed to feel feelings.
Yeah.
Or I can't show my feelings.
I can't cry.
But back in the days, it was like worse compared to now.
Yeah, I mean, now people are normalizing if a man is crying. But back then, it was like a shame. Yeah. You're not allowed to cry. A man doesn't shed a tear.
And in many ways, like Shakespeare publishing this sonnet, or did he publish them? I don't remember. But like him writing this sonnet and him admitting to crying is also kind of like progressive.
And vulnerable.
Yeah.
It feels vulnerable, yeah.
A man showing his vulnerable side is very hard.
Yeah.
Especially when he's such a like public figure.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
It's very interesting that he wasn't afraid of the criticism of other people at that time.
Or like he was brave enough to put it out even if the criticism would have been there. It's crazy to think about how something that someone said hundreds of years ago could still be relevant today. Even with like grief and being unable to let people go, grief has never changed, I feel like, in its essence. People still grieve.
Yeah, grieving is inevitable in our life. Like among our lives, I think grief, we cannot move on past grief. However, as the sonnet goes on, they talk about how a friend, how a loved one can make us feel better
And
on
get
our
over
past losses.
struggles.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of beautiful. Like you meet people and you lose people, and then you'll eventually, not to say replace, but like you'll eventually meet more people, and that
Better people, maybe you meet someone and at that time, you think you're meant to be friends, for example. But then you meet somebody else and realize maybe that friend isn't as good with me.
Oh, or just like maybe if you've lost that friend, you still have happy memories of them. So when you meet other friends, you're like, oh, I've loved and I've lost, but I've still loved no matter what. In that sense, what did you guys think of Sonnet 106? Because that's kind of like it's about like not necessarily grief, passage of time, and how beauty is never eternal. To lose one's beauty, to grieve over the loss of one's beauty, I guess. He says like somehow like true beauty has no words.
I feel like I didn't really get that one as much. It was like kind of the complex ones where I was trying to get where he's coming from, but trying to think about it made me kind of confused.
Oh, what part confused you?
Like him talking about beauty, what side is he talking about exactly?
I thought he was talking about physical beauty. Because he goes...
Yeah, he's talking about physical beauty, how their beauty wows him.
Yeah, I thought it was like about how other writers talk about beauty and how it's of hand, of foot, of lip, of eye, of brow, like the materialistic features. And then he goes, well, I can never describe you like that because your beauty is like too much or something.
Yeah, the speaker also talks about how you're so beautiful that no poet could capture it. But
Yeah, like no matter how much he writes about it, he wouldn't go to the level of the beauty. He can't describe how beautiful
But
that person is.
I have a mixed feelings on this sonnet because I like how it celebrates the subject's exceptional beauty, but the sonnet might feel a bit overly idealized.
Like too romanticized.
I feel like even though if someone is too pretty, there's no way that you can't like write about them or talk about them or describe them. Like even though he's comparing about other poets or them writing about somebody's beauty, no matter how that extent of beauty is going for like that person he's talking about,
feels
there's no way that you
exaggerated.
can't like talk about how, someone's beauty. You'd still have something to say.
What do you think, Aina?
I think that other than the underlying meaning of this sonnet, I think he also, a theme that we encounter throughout the sonnet, he often directly references his own poetry. Like there are certain lines where he references to his own poetry. And then, yeah, I think even though this sonnet, there are like some negative aspects, I think it's sweet overall. And the way they describe how a person looks, like how beautiful or like how youth is like beautiful and stuff like that, I think he described it in a pretty way, in a beautiful way, yeah.
I also really like this line, have eyes to wonder, but lack tongues to praise, as I was saying. You're like wondering and you're looking at that person, but that person is too pretty, you feel like you lack words to say.
And going back to what you said about like the whole you can still describe them, I felt like he was trying to talk about how like the way I thought about it in like modern times, you could think about it as like, real beauty is from within. You can never describe that level of the love he feels for that person is not because of how beautiful they are, because he loves them so much no matter what. Their beauty is indescribable in that sense. And honestly, not like as romanticized and as idealized as it is, like in modern day, you don't really have that kind of, I guess, powerful description of love anymore.
No, I agree. I think people do still look at looks more than like what's on the inside.
Like especially with like social media, trends of what beauty should be are like more apparent than ever.
Unrealistic and
Even though standards change like at least every 10 years.
Yeah, if not quicker because of social
Let's say,
media.
for example, I know this is very cliche to say, but like for example for lips, lip fillers.
Yeah.
Small lips before were attractive, now they're not. Which is really weird.
Super weird. I think in today's day, we still have people whose beauty and talent or influence it is admired or celebrated. For instance, like influencers or celebrities, we look up to them and we see them as a remarkable person.
Yeah.
I think that relates to these days, these modern days.
I guess like for our last sonnet, we could talk about sonnet 12. It's also about time. When do I count the clock that tells the time? It was about like having children, everlasting life. I thought that was really
This one is
different.
so sad for me. I think it's kind because you talk about time. Time is always flowing. Time doesn't stop for you. Yeah, how you
Yeah,
say
and sometimes
about
when you
that.
kind of overthink about it, you're like, at some point, this is gonna end at some point.
the running out
Maybe
of
you wake
time,
up this
yeah.
morning and then the next day you're not there. So it's kind of like thinking about how time is running all the time and how it eventually fades is kind of sad.
yeah, I think time determines everything. Even if like you're okay, I feel like I want to change tomorrow, but if you have no time, then that desire to change will not exist. How do I explain it? Like, it will not exist because time ran out for you because you're not there anymore.
Time will not wait for you.
It will not wait for you. Like
Yeah, and
that.
also Shakespeare was suggesting about like having children to preserve life and legacy. But really, these days, I don't think much people see that children are the only way to preserve legacy.
Yeah, nowadays children are like I'd hope that having children is more about like loving another creature and caring for another creature rather than you're gonna carry on my legacy or my bloodline. Yeah.
And many people find having children unnecessary right now because some people are not ready to be parents, and like some people, they know that they're not suitable and they're gonna treat their kids terribly. So I don't think like the thought of like continuing a legacy exists. Not a lot of that thought exists in this century now. I think that was more to like the past, those especially royalties. For now, I don't think it's like apparent.
Yeah, because nowadays bloodline isn't important anymore at all, I guess.
I also like how Shakespeare compares time with natural world like trees, flowers, as how beauty and youth is not. Not internal. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Honestly, like, minus the last line where he's like a safe breed to brave him when he takes the ends. Okay, good for you, I guess. But like, it's nice to think about. Like, I guess it's something that brings everyone together. Time's always gonna run out. Even if you have kids, your own time is gonna run out no matter what. And in some ways, that's bittersweet. It means you get to cherish what you have.
Yeah, but I feel like also him saying his own point of view, if you think you're going to be a good parent, not everybody's qualified, honestly, to be a good parent. So telling people that you should have children just to, like, leave that legacy, I don't think is pretty good. Because then, like, some people, let's say, that are not very good, going to be good parents or don't really have the qualities to be a good parent, or let's say financial, if we want to talk about financially stuff, you can't tell everybody to have kids. You see, like, there are some poor people and then they have lots of kids. Sometimes it is positive, but having a child and making him sit in a place where he's not taking what he deserves, I think he shouldn't really say that, in my opinion.
I think that's indirectly like abuse too, because like you're not capable of having kids and supporting them, but you still produce them because of your own selfish needs.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. In some
Exactly.
ways, this feels kind of selfish in a way, like, have kids. Wow.
I think that's the only negative thing
Yeah.
in the sonnet.
Yeah, I think maybe I know that I was like talking more about the negative stuff of the sonnet.
What were you gonna say?
I feel like there's a lot of anxiety also in this poem, because in this sonnet, because he is scared of the unavoidable passage of pass of time. So he talks about time a lot also, right? So it's like the anxiety of how time is gonna end soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it does feel anxious, doesn't it? Wow. Well,
Yeah, how is it nothing in life stays the same way? Because time is always flowing.
Yeah, it sounds very tragic
Yeah.
and depressing.
Because we're in these days, we're also anxious how time doesn't wait for us. I kind of feel like we're chasing time.
Yeah, like you said just now, time doesn't wait for us.
Yeah, the pressure is on time, because the fast pace in our modern life, the rush to achieve
yeah,
everything.
It's so fast-paced.
Either personal or professional goals.
Now I feel like I'm overthinking.
You're gonna be a Shakespeare soon.
Yeah, because in social medias they also emphasize about youth and beauty, and yeah, you also know youth isn't gonna be internal. Our youth.
Yeah, like now they only symbolize like, oh, after 25, you are old.
That's so
You're no longer young.
concept.
Because 30 is
25,
still
you're
young. 30 is still young, but I despise how the media says, like, oh, you're 20, you're above 25. Oh my god, you're old.
You're not valuable anymore.
You should have kids now.
Yeah, you should have kids. How are you? You're hitting
Yeah,
30s.
why are you not married yet?
And like when somebody says I'm 27, they consider automatically you're 30.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Above 25, you're already like around the age of 30. You're old already, yeah.
I guess, I mean, in some ways, we also want to hold on to our youth, right? But like, I guess, what if we just enjoyed life?
Yeah, it also in a way, this one also taught us to value our time with our loved ones.
I feel like aging is a unavoidable thing and you should let it happen naturally. I feel like wrinkles and stuff like that is beautiful. Like you should let it show instead of stopping it. But at the end of the day, it's your own choice to do whatever you want. But like, yeah, that's what I think.
Because time is beyond our control, right? So we have to value our times.
As we age, time shows on our face, and like it's beautiful in a way.
Shows what we've been through.
Yeah.
I guess that's like a lot to think about then, everything we just talked
I
about.
think we shouldn't have let this the last sonnet.
Well, we're gonna be depressed for the rest of the day.
Well, we sound calm now.
Yeah. Alright, I guess that's a good place to stop. Wow.
Yeah, me too.
Shakespeare is amazing. Sorry.
I mean, he has his perks, but we're not gonna talk about that.
He has a lot of good things to say. Let's look at that.
Let's look at the bright side.
Even though he tells his story or like writes his sonnet in a tragic way, the underlying meaning is beautiful and
He always tries to subvert something, doesn't he?
Yeah, I feel like everything he writes is like passionate. He's passionate about what he's doing.
He's so
you
passionate.
can feel his emotions pouring out from the sonnet.
Love that. Well, alright, this has been a good talk.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for
agree.
chatting with me.
Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
tuning in.